so good in here. It smells like Reese's Puffs. Wait a minute. Wait just an ostrich minute.
Booster ignition and liftoff of Shuttle Endeavour with NASA's final space station crew compartment that brings a bay window view to our celestial backyard.
Can you believe that Mr. Cole sent me to outer space and I've been up here for 4 months? Do you know what it's like up here? There is no food and there's no bathroom. Do you know where I've had to use the bathroom? You don't want to know. But what Mr. Cole doesn't know is that I've almost fixed my spaceship and I should be heading back to Earth in 1 hour.
Hey there, guys and girls, it's Mr. Cole. Today in science, we are going to be talking about life cycles. So what exactly is a life cycle? Well, a cycle is usually in a circle, as you see here, where the butterfly is changing through its life. It goes in a circle. So the definition of a life cycle would be the stages that a living thing goes through during its life on Earth until it dies. So every living creature on this Earth goes through a life cycle, including you. So we have a butterfly life cycle on the screen. And as you see right here, it starts as a chrysalis on the branch. You've probably seen one of these in your yard before. And it stays in that chrysalis for quite some time, and then it emerges into a caterpillar. And that caterpillar then transitions into what we know as the butterfly. And that butterfly reaches its adult stage. And after that, it transitions the cycle by laying more eggs, putting itself back in a cocoon or a chrysalis, whatever you might want to call it. And the life cycle just goes in a circle over and over. So a life cycle is basically the circle of life. If you've ever watched The Lion King, the song Circle of Life, that's what we're talking about today. So metamorphosis, that's a big word to say, is what's happening in that life cycle with the butterflies. So the definition of metamorphosis is when an organism has a dramatic change during its life cycle. So if you look at the butterfly, that is a huge change. It starts out as a caterpillar and it changes into a completely different organism. That's pretty dramatic. That is what we call metamorphosis, when something has a huge change from birth in its life cycle. So you've probably seen a frog before, and you've probably seen tadpoles before. That's what we're looking at right here. So a frog's life cycle obviously starts in the water. It starts off as eggs, as you see here at the top of the life cycle, and then into the embryo stage. And then those eggs hatch into tadpoles. And then as the tadpoles swim around in the water or the creek, as you've probably seen before, they start to emerge some legs. They start out with 2 legs. Then after a few weeks, the tadpoles get 4 legs. And eventually they start crawling out of the water and they transition into an adult frog. And then that adult frog, it lays eggs and the whole cycle starts all over again. So that's what we're talking about today, how these organisms go in a complete circle of life. And eventually that adult frog, he or she is going to die, but the cycle keeps going because eggs were laid and they will turn back into tadpoles, they'll grow their legs, and eventually they'll be an adult frog, and it will just keep going on and on and on forever. So plants even have life cycles, whether you knew that or not. Every living thing on this earth goes through a life cycle. So the difference between animals and plants is that plants always start as a seed. Okay, so as you see right here, we have what looks like a bean. Beans are seeds, and they are planted in the dirt, and the seeds will eventually sprout a root, as you see here, and the cycle keeps going. It gets longer roots. Out of the seed pod will start to sprout some leaves. The roots are getting bigger, as you notice, and then finally it makes an adult plant. As you see here, we've got a beanstalk, and that beanstalk, when it becomes an adult, its goal is to reproduce just like the frog laid the eggs. But the plant is not going to lay any eggs. That would be kind of funny. Plants don't lay eggs. Plants are going to create seed pods. As you see here, there's a pod of beans. You've probably seen in a vegetable garden outside, your plants get little blooms on it. I know that my squash plants out in the yard, when I plant them in the summer, they get these big, huge yellow blooms. And then within a few days, you start to see a squash on the squash plant. That is the life cycle of plants. They create a bloom, and then they create a seed that keeps the life cycle going on and on forever and ever. Now, eventually, the last stage of this adult plant is that it's going to die. But the beans, they keep going on in the life because of the seeds that they produced. So it's just one giant circle that never ends. So we could even do a life cycle of Osty the ostrich. Did you all hear that? That was weird. I don't know what that was. Anyway, so if you didn't know this, an ostrich actually starts out as an egg, just like a chicken hatches from an egg. And ostrich eggs are very large, as you see in this picture. There is a human hand holding the egg. And after those ostrich eggs hatch, they form baby ostriches, as you see right here. And those baby ostriches grow into adult ostriches. And that adult ostrich will lay more eggs, and the adult ostrich will eventually pass away. But its babies will remain on this earth, and the cycle will keep going in circles. So the main difference between an animal life cycle and a plant life cycle is how they start. So you're going to see that plants always start as they start as a seed. Now, an animal doesn't start as a seed. It can start as an egg, like you see here in this picture, or they can start as babies, just like you and I and your dog or your cat may have started. So here is the life cycle of a dog. Now, we all know that puppies are the youngest stage, the babies of dogs, and that is the beginning of the life cycle of a dog. That puppy is going to grow up into the adolescence stage. That's kind of like being a teenager. So after that puppy reaches the adolescent stage, it becomes an adult, and that adult dog will eventually have puppies of its own, and that's what keeps the life cycle going of the dog. So eventually that adult dog will die. That is the last stage of a life cycle. So we have some similarities and we have some differences in our life cycles. So what is a similarity? Well, a similarity means something that is the same. What is something that is the same about a dog's life cycle and an ostrich? Yeah, they start as something that would be a baby that grows into an adult. What is something that is different from this dog's life cycle and the ostrich life cycle? If you said that the ostrich starts as an egg and the dog starts as a puppy, you are correct. They do not start the same way, but they both result in having a young offspring. Just like humans, we start out as babies, we grow into the adolescence stage, then we become adults, and we have children, and our life cycle keeps going on and on forever. So, what stages do life cycles usually include? Well, there's going to be a birth of some sort in a plant life cycle. That might be a seed. And then there's going to be a baby stage, which we would call a puppy in this picture. Then there's going to be an adolescent stage. And then finally, the adult stage and death. So that is what we're talking about in science the next few weeks. We might even try to plant some seeds and watch them grow, and we could look at the life cycle of plants. So we might try that in science this next coming week. I hope you all have a great morning or afternoon, depending when you're watching this. Don't forget, if you have not completed your tech goals for me on Zern and Reflex, do that now. Let's get that done. And I hope you have a great long weekend. I will see you next time. Goodbye.
Known as the
Woohoo!
pre-flare maneuver, will pull the nose up a little bit
Why is there
right
water
before it hits the runway.
That is not good. Scary.
Speed now
Okay, we're
20
good.
miles
We're
per
good.
hour. The gear is down and locked.
Okay, we're almost on the line. Ow. Okay,
Making a
that
touchdown.
hurt. I think
Lance's
I'm
nose
going
being
to...
now rotated down toward the runway. The chute being deployed. And nose gear touchdown. Space Shuttle Atlantis now comes home to the Kennedy Space Center for the final time.
Guess who's back?